Missouri is often seen as the stable heart of America. Yet between the Ozark Hills and along its great rivers, there are real fractures in history. Coordinates slowly erased from Postal Service maps. Some towns vanished because of a single fatal chemical mistake. Others died from wartime military decisions. And some are slowly fading after being bypassed by modern progress. This is the story of 15 places in Missouri that have surrendered or are still fighting against silence. We'll see how grand infrastructure turns into rubble and why once thriving communities end up as footnotes in state archives. Have you ever heard of Times Beach? It sounds more like a nickname than an official town, yet it stands as one of the darkest environmental warnings in United States history. In the 1970s, Times Beach was not a ghost town. It was a busy working-class community. The trouble began when city officials hired a contractor to spray waste oil on dusty roads to control pollution. What they didn't realize was that the oil had been contaminated with dioxin, one of the most toxic chemicals known to humans. The full impact became clear in the early 1980s after severe flooding spread the poison throughout the town. The federal government made an extreme decision: evacuate every resident and eliminate zip code 63025. Today, if you visit the site, you'll find Route 66 State Park. Not a single house remains, just open grasslands covering the memory of a mass evacuation. Moving into Dade County, we arrive at Everton. Technically, the town isn't completely dead, but walking through its downtown feels like watching a movie pause mid-scene. Everton is a classic case of slow death. With a population now below 150 people, many red brick buildings in its business district still stand solid, yet hollow inside. Large display windows that once showcased merchandise now reflect only empty streets. Everton survives thanks to the surrounding agricultural sector, but it has lost its main function as a local trade hub. The fact that its buildings remain structurally intact makes it feel even sadder than total ruins. A reminder that concrete often outlasts the economic heartbeat of a town. From a town fading slowly, we move to a place whose history lies buried beneath the ground. If you appreciate the aesthetic of industrial ruins, Phenix in Greene County stands out. The town was once known nationwide for one thing: Phenix marble. Stone from here was used in grand structures like the New York Stock Exchange. When the quarry was active, Phenix was a prosperous, self-sufficient town. But the Great Depression of 1929 devastated the construction industry, and demand for luxury marble collapsed almost overnight. The town didn't fade gradually, it went bankrupt fast. Today, what remains are fragments of stone mills and building foundations slowly overtaken by tree roots. The scene feels cinematic, showing how quietly nature reclaims land once claimed by human ambition. Meanwhile, there's a town called Arlington that was once a must-stop destination for travelers along Route 66. It grew as a summer resort town, offering scenic views of the Gasconade River. But its fate shifted dramatically when the railroad was rerouted and a new highway was built slightly outside its path. The final blow came with the construction of Interstate 44, which physically isolated the town from the main flow of traffic. Today, Arlington is left with only 1 or 2 occupied homes. The rest are rotting wooden frames. Not far from here once stood the well-known lodge owned by Gary Wigbells, now a visual symbol of old-era tourism collapse. Arlington proves that in a transportation-driven economy, a shift of just a few miles can determine whether a town survives or disappears. Unlike towns that faded because of economic decline, Hamburg in St. Charles County died from forced patriotism. In 1940, just before the United States entered World War II, the War Department decided it needed vast land to build an ammunition plant. Residents of Hamburg were given only weeks to pack up their lives and leave. Churches, schools, and homes were demolished to make room for explosive storage bunkers. Today, the area has become the Weldon Spring Conservation Area. Remnants of building foundations and old cemeteries still hide behind brush and trees. Hamburg never regained its population. It remains a silent monument to permanent wartime sacrifice. Not every Missouri ghost town has a military story behind it. Halltown is often called the antique capital of the Route 66 corridor, though the title feels ironic. The town now stands on the brink of disappearance. Its most iconic structure is the Whitehall Mercantile, a general store dating back to the early 1900s, its walls slowly bending with age. A handful of residents still live nearby, but Halltown Center feels like an unattended open-air museum. The population dropped sharply after a highway bypass meant drivers no longer needed to pass through Main Street. Interestingly, Halltown still operates a minimal post office, making it one of the smallest towns in Missouri still trying to maintain its legal status as an incorporated community. Next is the town of Allenton, whose fate is no less ironic because of how strategic its location was. How so? Once a thriving stopover community in St. Louis County, Allenton was gradually dismantled to make way for the expansion of Interstate 44. Unlike towns abandoned due to bankruptcy, Allenton's residents were literally displaced by progress. Most of the former town now lies beneath highway pavement or has become part of the parking lots for Six Flags St. Louis. If you look closely, you can still spot a few dead-end roads that were once the main streets of the settlement. Allenton reminds us that convenience for millions often comes at the cost of erasing the identity of a small community standing directly in the way. What about this place? The name Jollification may sound cheerful, but its present condition is anything but. Located in Newton County, Jolly was a vital wheat milling center in the 19th century. The American Civil War brought major destruction when Confederate forces burned much of its facilities. Although it briefly recovered, shifts in transportation routes in the early 20th century caused Jolly to lose its relevance. Today, the main attraction is Jolly Mill, a stone structure that still stands along the river, surrounded by the flattened remains of other buildings. The site now functions more as a historic landmark than a living settlement, where Missouri's early industrial history can be seen in its rawest form. Moving into the early 20th century, Monark Springs was once a small Las Vegas for those seeking healing. The mineral springs were believed to have remarkable medical benefits, drawing thousands of visitors each year. Luxury hotels, bathhouses, and recreational centers sprang up rapidly, but as modern medicine advanced, the appeal of mineral springs faded. Without steady tourism, Monarch Springs' economy collapsed. Today, little activity remains, and most of the original resort structures have deteriorated or been overtaken by vegetation. What's left are stories of a time when people traveled hundreds of miles just to drink water that now flows unnoticed. The emptiness left behind by fading tourism echoes in small towns now inhabited by only a handful of people. Newburg is a clear example of how a town can rise and fall with a single industry, the railroad. In its prime, it was a bustling locomotive repair hub where hundreds of workers and their families filled the streets every day. But when steam engines were replaced by diesel technology and rail lines began consolidating, Newburg's role as a railroad shop town vanished almost overnight. Today, its downtown holds rows of multi-story brick buildings that still look grand, yet stand empty, their broken windows facing tracks that are rarely used. The contrast in Newburg is striking, solid big city architecture paired with an unsettling silence. Replacing another small settlement, Sherman in St. Louis County offers a far more dramatic image of nature reclaiming civilization. Once a busy shipping center for limestone and timber along the Missouri Pacific Railroad, Sherman struggled against repeated flooding from the Merrimack River. After the major floods of 1993 and 1994, most residents finally gave up and left their homes behind. Today, Sherman is almost entirely covered by dense forest. Venture inside, and you'll find leaning wooden house frames tangled in vines, creating scenery that feels straight out of a post-apocalyptic film. Sherman isn't just quiet, it's a town physically being consumed by Missouri soil. South Greenfield in Dade County presents a haunting picture of what happens when commerce abandons a main street. Unlike small towns with only a single aging house, South Greenfield still has a row of downtown buildings that look like a deserted historical film set. These stone and brick structures with classic facades now sit empty, their doors and windows boarded up and slowly decaying. The town once grew through agriculture and its strategic location, but today its population has shrunk dramatically to fewer than 100 residents. Meanwhile, Stotts City in Lawrence County is a perfect example of a shrinking town. Its strongest visual feature is the downtown strip, lined with iconic red brick buildings, including a former bank and storefronts that now sit abandoned. Stotts City was once a promising trade center, but isolation from major economic routes slowly drained its population. Unlike ghost towns that have been leveled to the ground, Stotts City still has strong architectural bones, creating a striking contrast between early 20th century brick facades and streets that are now nearly empty. It's a place that stands out visually because of the distinctive look of its downtown buildings. Goldman in Jefferson County once showed real potential thanks to its position along local transportation routes, but its growth stalled completely as economic expansion shifted toward the more modern suburbs of St. Louis. Today, Goldman is best known for its red-covered bridge. Many structures here have been abandoned since the 1990s. Even though it appears tidy, the town is edging toward ghost town status because no new generation is stepping in to take over properties. Goldman serves as a reminder that suburban growth often leaves behind pockets of decline and vacancy in areas that fall outside development plans. We end this list with Possum Trot. Its eccentric name reflects Missouri's distinctive character. Deep in rural territory, Possum Trot was never a large town, but it once served as a community hub for surrounding farmers. As farmland consolidated under larger corporate ownership, the need for small local centers like this disappeared. Today, Possum Trot leaves behind only one or two structures still recognizable as a former store or post office. It represents a ghost town in its purest form, a place that existed for a practical purpose in the past, but no longer serves a function in the present. Tracing the stories of these 15 towns in Missouri gives us a different perspective on progress. We often celebrate new highways, advances in medical technology, or industrial efficiency without realizing that each leap forward can leave casualties behind. These ghost towns, whether completely erased like Times Beach or slowly fading like Everton, stand as silent witnesses to how fragile a community can be. They are not just collections of old buildings and broken roads. They are physical evidence of how quickly fortunes can change. When we look at towering buildings in major cities today, a question emerges. Where is the line between a growing city and one that may someday become just another name on a list like this? Will the place we call home still stand 100 years from now?